Hi, and welcome to another product knowledge video. This one is all about condominium owners associations. The presentation is being done this morning by Amanda Daniels, and she is the business development department of an organization called Apartment Insurance Consultants, and they are what we call an SMP, specialty markets provider, which is essentially a general agency, wholesaler, and so forth, and they work through the agency force, like the agency sponsoring this particular product knowledge video. So, Amanda, let's talk about condominium owners associations. What do they cover?
All right. We cover property, general liability, and excess liability for condo owners. For the association itself, we don't cover for the individuals that own the condos, but for the associations.
I got it.
Again, they need to have 45 units or more, otherwise our prices and deductibles don't really make sense for them.
I got it. Is that a normal number? Is 45 relatively small, or I don't know much about condominiums, but
it's pretty small when there's a owners association. So it's typically a neighborhood or a building that has several units in it.
That's what I needed to know. Let's talk about the liability part of it. I think this is fascinating because it's the most important part. Oh, well, I guess. We'll see. Go ahead.
All right. The liability program covers, again, the association. So mostly it covers the common areas, the clubhouse, the pool areas, that kind of stuff, outside of your condo itself. So if the condo is in charge of the upkeep of the outside, the grounds and everything, it's going to cover outside of your apartment complex as well, outside your front doors. So we have individual limits per location. It has a $2 million aggregate, $1 million per occurrence. Our programs have hard renewal dates, so depending on which program you're put in, we either have an October 1st renewal or a December 14th renewal. It is a master policy that we write through. If for some reason it doesn't fit into our programs, we do have partner brokers that we can put the liability through as well.
Give me one example if you can. I'm throwing this at you out of left field here, but give me an example of what a liability risk, can be typical. A claim. What would a claim maybe be on that?
The typical claim for liability is a slip and fall. So if somebody's outside of the complex or in the neighborhood and they're walking and they trip and fall on a cracked sidewalk, that's a typical claim. So if somebody gets hurt, breaks a foot, breaks a hip, something like that, they typically turn that in as a liability claim. Oh,
okay. Thank you. All right. Let's talk about the characteristics of your master policy then.
Okay. Master policy is a little bit unique. A master policy for condos typically covers from the studs out for each condo. So since when you buy a condo with an owner's association, the condo association is typically responsible from the studs out of the unit. From the studs in, the owner is typically responsible for anything inside of it.
Oh, that's
so
interesting.
Any of the appliances, the wallpaper or paint on the walls, they're responsible for. But anything on the other side is what the condo association is responsible for in the event of a loss.
Do people understand that terminology, studs out? I had never heard it before, but I bet they do probably.
Yeah. If you own a condo, you know, because it's in the bylaws of your condo association.
Okay. Thank you.
So, and again, anything that the bylaws of the association require the association to cover, that's what we cover. So every association is a tiny bit different, but they're typically from the studs out.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
And again, it does not cover the condo owner's personal property. You would need your own homeowners association or homeowners policy for that. Mm-hmm. That's going to cover all of your property, your appliances, everything inside. It does provide coverage to individuals in many locations. That is what a master policy does. It takes several locations and puts it into one policy, which makes the price and the deductibles much more affordable.
Huh, okay. Let's go to the coverage itself then. Let's talk about some of the highlights of it.
All right. So this is regarding the property coverage here. All of our carriers are A rated or better, which is important to lenders. The building includes is replacement coverage, which means it will cover, it's not actual cash value. So it's going to replace it at replacement cost.
Okay.
We have a 110% margin clause in our policy,
What's
which
that mean?
means if you tell
go ahead.
if you tell us the building value is $1 million, in the event of a loss, it'll pay out $1.1 million. So it'll give you 110% of the building value.
Oh, okay.
So it gives you a little cushion. Our policies always include building ordinance or law coverage. It has an extended period of indemnity, which means if half of your units are burned down. In the case of a condo owners association, since we don't cover rents because people own their own condos, it would cover their dues. So their dues to the association would be covered during that time.
Oh, good. Okay.
Demolition cost of construction is included. Non-owned and hired auto liability is included up to $1 million. That would cover if your condo association has a golf cart that takes people around to look at the open condos. That's what that's going to cover.
Would that cover stuff like I'm a condo owner and you had a fire and my car burned up? Would that cover it?
No. Okay. No, because that would be covered under your personal homeowner's policy.
Good.
Yes. Boiler and machinery is not, in condos, they don't typically have boiler machineries, but it's in there in case they do have a boiler machinery that that's going to be if you had one boiler that heated all the condos for some reason.
Yeah.
If you were in one building that had all the condos in it, that may be applicable there, but most of the time it's not, but it's there.
Okay.
Real property is included, and when I talk about real property, I am talking about fences, pools, carports, signs, storage buildings. So that is included. There's not an extra cost for that.
I got it. Okay, good. All right.
Yeah.
Deductibles. Everything's deductible these days, you know. Go ahead.
Everybody has one.
Yeah.
So for our property deductible, we have a $10,000 all other perils, which is going to be if there's a fire, if somebody runs into the building with their car, it's going to be a $10,000 deductible. Wind and hail has their own deductible. Depending on where your location is, it's either going to be a $10,000, a $25,000, or if it is coastal, then it's going to be a $50,000 wind hail, and your named storm is going to have a 3% deductible on it.
Okay.
So again, just depends on where your location is will determine your deductible. Equipment breakdown has its own $10,000 per location deductible. Terrorism has a $10,000 per location deductible, which is always included in not only our property but our liability as well.
I see.
And then our general liability never has a deductible.
I can see that too because it could be anything. Okay, let's hit the last list here, or one of the last lists. Coverage highlights.
So again, all of our carriers are A-rated or better. We have replacement costs on everything except for roofs that are over 15 years. If you have a roof that's over 15 years, you just get actual cash value. Most of the time, roofs have been used or replaced within 15 years.
Okay.
We do have the 110% margin clause, which I explained earlier, and the law and ordinance and non-owned and hired auto liability we talked about a little earlier too.
Right. That's interesting that this is kind of a complicated coverage, isn't really? You really need to know the pieces. Well, what would you say, you've been in it a long time now, what advice would you give to the condominium association owners?
So I would say if you have something that is coming up for renewal or that you're purchasing, submit it as early as possible. The earlier you send in your submission, the longer we have to make sure that we get it into our program that fits it the best. Some of our programs we have to send up for approval. Some of them we can just quote when you send it in. But if we get it in time, we can send it to the best program. The more details you have, the better it is for us. Especially with condos, there's always something special about condos. Either they have a unique way of renting them out versus owning them, or they have certain claims that came in that need some kind of explanation. So the more details you can give us, the better. That way when we take it to our carrier, we can explain it to them, and especially if we have to ask them for some kind of exception or special requirement, that gives us more ammo to talk to them about it.
Got it.
And finally, just make sure you let us know exactly what you need. With condominiums, it's always best to send in your bylaws if you have a copy of them, just so we make sure that we cover everything that you need us to cover. And if for some reason we can't cover it, we will let you know up front so that you know we may not be the best fit for you. But we will always make sure that we let you know.
Thank you, Amanda. You did a very nice job here presenting this. Short, sweet, and to the point, but I think condominium people will get the basic idea. So let me once again suggest to those of you who watch this that you go back to the agency who sponsored it and talk to them, and they'll be able then to work with AIC or whomever they work with, but probably AIC, to make sure that this gets done the right way. So we'll look forward to talking to you on our next product knowledge video.